Welcome to the Trigger Warning Talk podcast. We are streaming recorded here on audio and video produced by Anchor and brought to you by Pen Consulting Solutions LLC. We are in all podcast world markets now. We are audio, we're video, we're on Audible, we're on iHeartRadio, we're on Spotify, Amazon Music, Podbean, Apple and Google Podcasts, everywhere that you get your podcasts, we are there. We have a very special guest in the building. We're going to jump into her story in a minute. I got to give you the disclaimer. So, Trigger Want to Talk podcast, we got some heavy subjects that we cover. We talk about four areas: missing persons. That's always something that we cover in the end, but we focus on domestic violence, sexually based offenses, human and sex trafficking. I want to let you guys know that anybody that's watching this and or listening to this podcast when it's published, which will be in September. It's going to be mid-September when this podcast comes out. If you are triggered at any point during this podcast, please call 911 first. We do not want people to not reach out for help if they need an immediate help. That's EMS, fire, and police. If you don't have an immediate need, but you still need help, we have some resources that are going to be listed in the show notes. We have the domestic violence, the trafficking, the sexual assault hotlines, and their websites listed. If you have a substance abuse issue, whether it's drinking, whether it's drugs, we have three numbers and their websites listed. That's Alcoholics Anonymous, that's Narcotics Anonymous, and finally, if you are a supporter or a loved one of someone with a substance abuse problem, there's Al-Anon. There's now a new 911 number that's available nationwide. It's called 988. Started yesterday nationwide. It's been out for about a month or so now. But again, 988 if you're having issues with suicidal ideation. I want to welcome a very special guest in the building today, Miss Theda Person. I see I always call you Theda. There you go again.
But Theda, I answered again.
You answered again. I don't know. My brain is just wired differently. I don't know what's going on with me. Miss Theda Person. You know, Theda, I admire you so much, and I'm going to get into why I admire you. I admire you because for over 19 years, you've been an advocate. You've been just making people aware of missing persons. You have this great organization called Looking for an Angel Incorporated. We're going to talk about that. It's a 501c3 nonprofit organization. You are the mother of Christian Ferguson. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk just in part about the case that was just adjudicated on Court TV a couple of weeks ago. And that case is called Missouri versus Ferguson. Yes, finally. That case was adjudicated. The plaintiff in the case was the state of Missouri versus Danye Ferguson, and he was found guilty. He is the biological dad of your son, Christian Ferguson, who has been missing since 93, and the case actually was a murder case, is a murder case.
He's been missing since June 11, 2003.
What I said 90, I'm sorry. I'm thinking
he was born in 93, though.
Born in 93, right. I'm sorry. He was born in 93, but this was in 2003. And so we're going to talk about that case also. You know what I also want you to do? I want you to give us a big smile, because I'm going to give you a big round of applause just for winning that case, because that's been a long time.
It's a round of applause. You have to go in a circle like
a round of applause. Yes. And I don't have my other all my little sound effect gadgets and stuff, because I got like clapping and cheering and all this stuff. I'm telling you, I was watching that case. My mom was watching that case. Mrs. LP was watching that case. There were so many people that have been watching that case. Was watching that case because it's been a long time coming.
That's correct.
Before we get into that, again, I want to salute you for being the woman of strength and courage and wisdom and tenacity. You never gave up. You never let it go. You never said, hey, I'm just going to walk away from this or whatever. You are somebody that I just say, my hat's off to you. I salute you. I give you your
Thank
flowers.
you.
And I just love you to pieces. You got this band that you're a part of now, the Flex Band. We're going to talk about all of that stuff. Well, let's
Listen.
start at the beginning. Let's just start at the beginning.
Okay.
Tell us about Theda Person.
I have so much to say. I always have so much to say about that. But I was born to Theodore and Sandra Wilson. I grew up in the hood, North St. Louis. A lot of times people used to show on the news all the negative things going on in the hood.
Yeah.
But we had diamonds in the rough, like me. I had a gig called Diamonds in the Rough in my past. And so there's a lot of diamonds and a lot of people who could fill a lot of vacancies in a lot of different areas, but because of people not trying to include people from the hood, bringing them to the table so that they can, come up from poverty. And not saying that everyone there was in poverty, but there was a difference in the way that we were living compared to the way some people live in other municipalities like Ladue or Clayton. So fortunately, I had parents, both of my parents worked two good jobs.
Okay.
And so that allowed our household to have some advantages that other families may not have had, including having a mother and a father in the home.
Okay.
So my parents, they pretty much allowed us to be who we are, who we were and who we are, because pretty much I'm the same. I just do things a little differently. I've always been a person advocating for diversity, equity, and inclusion even in my youth. Currently, I work in that capacity as an administrative assistant for the government. But all my life, I've always just looked out for that person that some people considered the underdog, or the person that wasn't getting their fair end of the situation, people who were being oppressed and depressed. So I'm just glad that I had parents who allowed me, not always easily allowing me to do things, but I mean, I was a challenging child in a positive way. I was like, I wanted to be an attorney, so I would do things like, I remember one time telling my father, it's not my turn to wash dishes. Look at the chart on the wall. Now they created the chart, right? But they're still the parents. So, sometimes I just had to challenge a little, have a court in my house. And I didn't always win those battles. But, those situations kind of, to me, it's like they prepared me for today because, the battle that I've just won successfully, at least that part that I've successfully won that battle, but there's still other battles to fight, like the issues that led to that battle in the first place. A lot of things, a lot of people have questions about things like why I didn't have my children and those things like that. I'm working to expose via documentaries, writing my books, telling my story, even on personal levels, because I feel like everybody can learn from other people's situations. The thing is, a lot of people don't want to share. They only want you to know what you know. And that's a lot of times the reason why we find ourselves in difficult circumstances, difficult relationships. But I was scholar athlete in high school and college. I played volleyball. I had a volleyball scholarship. I attended the Academy of Mathematics and Science with Applied Technology and Junior ROTC in high school. And there, of course, I played volleyball. I ran track. I played basketball. So in my youth, I'm kind of bouncing all over the place. In my youth, I was on the swimming team at Matthews Dickey. So I'm really happy about Matthew Dickey's being in my life. I got a chance to meet, at least see a president. I remember Ronald Reagan came to Matthews Dickey's. They called it a boys club at the time, but
a boys club only.
Yes,
now it's the boys and girls club.
Yeah, I wonder if I made that change possible. No, I don't know. But anyway, I saw Robin Smith and Bonita Cornute. I love that lady. And I remember meeting her the day that Ronald Reagan came to Matthews Dickey, and I was saying, I know who you are. And she was like, you know who I am. She was just so beautiful and so nice to me, and she gave me some of her time, and to me it's like priceless. You know, I even in my adult life, when I meet her or when I'm in her presence, I'm just still in awe, because I feel like that little kid, oh, remember back in the day, you know, maybe she doesn't remember, but just being able to be in the environment of people that I look up to, you know, and then to grow up and be in a capacity where I can change the world for individuals who are to come and that I'm living with right now. I think that's an awesome opportunity. I used to work for the public schools in St. Louis. I taught kids, promoted kids to different grade levels. I worked as a family and community specialist. I've done a lot of things, and I'm glad that I have, because each thing kind of, the more I learned, since I love education, and that was my major. I have my degree in educational studies from Harrisville State University. It was a college when I started, but I finished. So now I'm a student at Webster University, and my goal is to study legal studies. So I just can't get enough of learning, and there's a lot more that I could say about myself. I received a lot of community service awards, community proud awards. So a lot of people have been happy about the work that I'm doing. And I don't only just focus on missing person cases. I happen to hate all forms of injustice. So therefore, I'm helping people of all different races, colors, socioeconomic statuses. If I find out about something and I know that there's something that I could do, believe me, I'm going to do something about it. If that means drafting legislation, if they've been trying to find a representative to push that legislation through, you know, if that means educating citizens about who their elected officials are, because a lot of people don't have power because they just don't know who those people are in positions of power. So the more you know, the more you can do, and the more you can hold people accountable. So I'm a lot of things to a lot of people, but I try to be the best that I could be in whatever I find myself doing.
I am very similar in some of these things that you just mentioned. And before we started recording, we were talking about the missing person aspect.
Yes.
And one of the things that I was saying to you is, when we cover missing persons cases, 99% of those cases are melanated men, women, and children. However, we throw other cases under missing persons, like you were just stating about the injustice. So if somebody is not missing, but they were killed under suspicious circumstances, and their killer or killers, because we don't know if it was one or more people involved, are not brought to justice, we want to bring the media attention to that case, because a lot of times those cases go cold. They just sit in the box in the shelf somewhere, and nobody's talking about them anymore. So that's going to be one of the cases that we talk about today after our interview. Now, I want to say to you, when did you stop counting all these awards and plaques and stuff that you got? Because I know you got probably a room full of them.
Well, growing up, I had one of the walls, like if people can just imagine a square, we'll say the room is a square or a rectangle, whichever one you prefer. I like giving you options. But one of the walls in the room, it was just full of my backstroke and breaststroke awards and ribbons, all kind of certificates. Like I missed Junior Olympics by I think 1/10 of a second. But I really didn't want to go. I just was like, I'm tired. I want to do something different. But I had to fight to do something different. But eventually, I did something different. And like I said, I'm glad that my parents, even though they challenged me to stick to what I decided to do, which helped me to get to where I am today, they still. I think that's the reason why they just didn't want me bouncing all over the place. But at the same time, they did, because they wanted me to know what it was that I wanted to do. So I appreciate those options, and trying to balance that, knowing when a child or anyone wants to do something differently, making sure you're doing it for the right reasons. I think that's very important. So it helped me to kind of know when to say when, even though that has always been a challenge for me, when to say when. And I don't know if that was a challenge for you. You have challenges like that sometimes.
We got challenges like that, but you know what? I just want to say to you that I just whenever I probably come back to St. Louis in September this year, we're gonna link up
Okay.
and we're just gonna have a nice, great time. Me, you, and Ellen. Hopefully you guys will have a show scheduled that particular weekend or that week, so I can be in the front row cheering you guys on because you guys don't know this maybe, but Theda is a vocalist. She's a singer, and so she's part of a group called Flex Band, which is led by a childhood ex-girlfriend of mine, Ellen Gordon. But we'll talk about that later. So
Okay.
I want to let people know again, this is the Trigger Warning Talk podcast, streaming on all platforms now. Wherever you get your podcasts, we're going to be everywhere. If you're triggered at any point, call 911 or reach out to one of the resources that we have listed in the show notes. You had your hand raised, Theda. What do you want to say?
Before you gave that important message that you just mentioned, I just want to remind you that when you do come to the show, be sure to bring your tips.
Absolutely. You got to tip your waitresses. You got to tip your performers. You got to tip people.
Right. People work hard.
My mom worked and she made tips for a living. That was where a lot of her money came from. So I'm a big tipper. So I love tipping folks.
Good.
We're going to jump into the meat and potatoes section of the podcast. I want you to talk about Christian. Okay. Introduce to the audience because some people don't know about Christian's story, partly because it's been such a long time with his case. Mm-hmm. And some people just kind of forgot about it. I'm here in Charlotte. So there's some people here in the Southeast, when I was talking about the case going on Court TV, they was like, well, who is that? I'm like, you don't know about the Christian Ferguson case? And I'm like, no. And I'm like, oh, well, okay. So I want you to introduce us to your beloved son, Christian.
Well, Christian was a beautiful angel. He was my angel baby. As a baby, I used to call him my angel baby or Yusufan man because that was a medication that was used that didn't receive FDA approval, I guess, at the time. But he needed it, and it helped to sustain his life. So he was born with a rare genetic disorder called citrullinemia. So it's a metabolic urea cycle disorder where he lacked the ability to break down protein. So there's this process that the body goes through. And since he was lacking one of the enzymes, the other enzyme would go out of control, creating what they call a hyperammonemic state, meaning that there's a high level of ammonia that's in his blood. And of course, too much of that can kill you. He would show signs of lethargy, may have glassy eyes, and just like with any other condition where you have to watch, if you've ever had a person who had to do a certain thing, like maybe diabetes, for example, if their insulin is high or whatever, they may display certain symptoms. So you just really look at those symptoms and you would know whether or not it's time to go to the emergency room or get checked out or something like that. So this was a situation that could be monitored. It's just all you have to do is just follow directions and pay attention. Absolutely. So, and one of the main things was as soon as you see the signs, to do something immediately, not when you feel like it, just respond accordingly. And, but he loved Cheetos. I like to really think about the beautiful things about him. Like,
this is your story. This is your story. And I want to tell the listening audience, we're not going to get into a lot of the specifics because she has a book coming out, she has a documentary coming out, and we can be here for hours, but we're not going to do it. So,
and thank you. That helps me to kind of, because I'm glad that you said that. Thank you very much, because there's so much that I have to say, like even the things that transpired, like from birth to 3 years old, when Christian just functioned as a typical child, So people didn't even know he had a genetic disorder. He just looked healthy, like a typical child. So people would try to give him candy bars and things, and I'd be like, no, he can't eat that. And they were like, hey, there's nothing wrong with him. He looks healthy. I'm like, yes, but he has a genetic disorder. I have to calculate everything that goes into his mouth. So basically, if he got too much or too little protein, he can have an issue, or if he didn't get his proper medications. So I went to math and science, so I feel like God just he prepared me. You know what I'm saying? So it's so many things, and I guess that's the reason why I've been able to survive this injustice is because I intentionally looked for my blessings. And those things kept, even when things got down, even when I wanted to take my own life, there were so many things going on as we went on and into the battle, the custody battle, and through the disappearance, there was just so many things. And I had to really just focus on God, allow the people who surrounded me to bless me, because sometimes you want particular people around you, and sometimes that's not the case. So you have to just get the love that's available to you. Absolutely. And press forward. So, but I don't know if I should I keep telling more about Christian, because I'm kind of intertwining, because he's inspired me. I guess I'm blessed to be the mother of Christian, because he taught me so much about what life really is and what it's like to sacrifice. And it just reminded me so much about the life of Christ. And, and I was like, maybe Mary felt like I felt, and just, it's so much to say. But he loved playing. He liked playing with things that he should not play with, like VCRs. And I'm like,
what are you talking about? I was a tech kid. I was a natural.
Maybe he was a tech kid, but I was like, hey, you can't play with the VCR.
They were expensive.
Toys don't go in VCRs. Videos go in there. But he was a good child, though. He liked giving. He loved giving, and so I guess he got that from me. I don't know, but he used to pick out blades of grass and just give me blades of grass like flowers. Mm-hmm. And he just loved how I smiled, I guess. And he just kept doing it. I'm like, oh man, we won't have grass, if he keeps this up. But when he prayed, he prayed for everything in nature, every person that he could think of. And then we'd all be like, amen, because we've been praying so long. But I look back on a lot of the things that he did, feeding his Cheetos to my ex-husband's dog, because I was like, well, actually it was his sister Lisa's dog, but the dog's name was Shaky, so he'd be like, "Here, Shaky," and giving Shaky Cheetos. Okay, so he was a giving child. He was a loving child. He loved singing and dancing, and that's a part that a part of his life that a lot of people don't know unless they had kids that attended the daycare facilities or educational facilities that he attended. So like, I remember when he first went in a coma, I met someone who cared for him at one of the educational institutes, and they were like, that's not Christian. And I was like, yes, this is Christian. I think it was after he went missing, actually. And they were like, no, but Christian could walk and talk. He could do. And I was like, I know, but he went through a coma. And so it was just hard trying to, it was good. It made me feel good because someone remembered the Christian that I knew, that I gave birth to, that I raised, and they could see how this tragedy affected his life and how it in our lives, but it was just so much to say about it. So many things that happened that really didn't have to happen. And I always would try to, like when the custody situation took place, try to encourage Christian and my surviving child by saying that we'll go to Disney World or Disneyland. I can't remember which one is which or what location, California, Florida, I don't know. But I was just trying to give them something to hang on to as I fought the custody battle, and just hearing him be happy about that. And both of my children just rejoice in that, knowing that one day that they'll be back with me and we'll be a family again, and then that not happening. I'm just like, it makes me feel like a liar in a way, because I'm like, when this happens, because I'm believing through faith that God is going to give me my babies back, because this situation is wrong and we're going to expose the truth. And we ran out of time. We ran out of time and out of life.
I want to jump to, and I'm going to let you focus that part of the story for your book and your documentary.
Mm-hmm.
I want to fast forward to the year 2003.
Okay.
This is where everything changed for
Yes.
you, Christian, and your whole family. 2003, Christian has an extreme critical condition where he went into a coma.
Yeah. Well, that was in 2001, January 16, 2001.
2001.
Yes. And 2 years later, he went missing.
2 years later, he went missing. So in 2001, he goes into this coma that was caused from.
Well, just having a condition that he has. If you don't follow,
so that was just part of the medical condition. It wasn't anything else. It was just
no. Let's get it right now. It wasn't because if you know that your child is sick and you don't follow the proper protocols, then that's a problem.
I just want you to clarify that it was not just like this condition just would cause you to go in a coma if everything is going okay.
No, it's a long time, but like I said, you would have to. I mean, it's just like if you don't eat, for example. A lot of people get angry when they don't eat, and if you have a certain condition, then you may respond according to the way that they say you will respond if you don't eat. But I know I'll talk about me and some of my students, for example, because of what I went through personally. I was a hyper kid pretty much, but if I didn't eat, I may get a little agitated, or feel a little lethargic myself, yeah. And I want to say I read I love education. I love psychology, law. I just love learning. So I remember reading something somewhere in my life where they were saying, I guess they did a study on people in prison, and they were saying that most of them had low blood sugar when they committed a lot of crimes or something like that. So, I just know how it's like, even in some of my students, they may have a hard day just because they didn't eat breakfast that morning. So a lot of times I would be intentional, because I'm like, hey, kids are just little, they're not little adults, but sometimes I feel like adults are big little kids. But I'm just saying that we need to think about if these things bother us, they may bother our children as well. So if they didn't get a good meal, then maybe they will have a hard day in school, and the same thing can happen to us. But getting back to Christian situation, it's not like, okay, you don't get something and boom, you in a coma. No, it doesn't happen like that. So the thing is,
and I just want you to clarify that with this condition, this is not something where at any point he can wake up and be in a coma just because that's how the disease progresses. No, if you are doing all the things, getting the proper nutrition, going to all the doctor's appointments, they're making sure everything, all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed in terms of the patient care. These things in terms of being in a coma state or death are really kind of rare. But outside of that, you're going to have problems if you're not making sure that all the doctor visits are happening. The medications are given as prescribed regularly, daily. All of these things. It's just like with any genetic or any metabolic disease. And because I'm a medic, I know these things. You have to follow the orders that you're given, especially for a special needs kid, because they have different comorbidities that somebody that does not have those comorbidities have. And especially with children, they can go for a long time, but then, we call it compensating. They can compensate for a long time, but when they get to that decompensated state, it's just like falling off the edge of the cliff. And so when they're in a decompensated state, that means they've been compensating for a long time, not getting the proper nutrition, not getting whatever they need. The care is not being done. So I just wanted you to address that. I wanted to move to 2003 now, and this is where the trial focused on him being missing. And according to what was stated in the trial, his dad, Dewan Ferguson, was taking him to the hospital to see the doctor because of his medical condition. And when he put Christian in the car, went to a payphone, called the hospital, and he reports that somebody took his car. He got carjacked with Christian in the back of the car. From that point, nobody ever sees Christian again to this day. And this is where you say that that's not the case. And this is where everybody else, including the police and including all the investigators, when they were doing their investigation, they're like, wait a minute, something's off here. Like, this doesn't sound right. This is not really what carjackers do. This is not how, somebody in that situation would respond if they found a kid in the car or something like that. And so from that point on, we don't know where Christian is. Nobody's telling us anything that is plausible or pliable, including his dad. And this is where Theda, the mom and the advocate, is like, wait a minute, stop the presses. This ain't right. We need to do something different, because I'm not going to just sit back and let this just go to the wayside. I'm not just going to let this be something that turns into a cold case. This is where the advocate is officially born. This is where Mama Bear says, hey, no, this ain't happening like some of these other cases that we know of. For you being in that seat, and that was, I would presume, the birth of Looking for an Angel, even though you didn't start it then. What was going on in your mind?
Well, it's funny that you said, and it's really not funny, but people typically say it's funny when it's not funny. But I took note of you saying something about a mother bear, because I had a bad experience at Cardinal Glennon Children's Hospital, where a doctor, I believe her name was Leggett, but I never met that lady at the time, but I remember her saying, you act like a mother bear who's lost her cubs. You couldn't do what you was thinking to do, really, because, I wouldn't be right here sitting here doing this interview. But it bothered me so bad having to walk that line. But I did tell her I am a mother bear, and I did lose my cubs, because I lost both of my children. First of all, a custody battle, but more that'll come out in the book. But when you said that bear part, every time I heard that, I was just like, oh, it's just funny how certain smells and thoughts and articles of clothing or whatever just trigger you. This is trigger. It's the trigger. You warned me. Then you did warn me.
Want to Talk podcast.
Yes. But could you restate your question? Because I forgot the other part that I was about to address outside of that mother bear part.
I want you to tell. No, that's fine. I want you to, because again, in all seriousness, you're still a mama bear.
Yeah, I'm a mother bear for everybody's baby.
For everybody.
Because everybody is somebody's baby. I'm just saying. So, I feel like we're all mandated reporters, period. So,
absolutely.
Report.
We're going to talk about that.
Okay.
We're definitely going to talk about that. My question to you is, because this incident happened, you're a mama bear, you're dealing with this ongoing custody dispute. Yes. You have now your special need son missing. These circumstances are at best suspicious, at worst criminal. What are you saying to everybody, the police, the courts, the investigators? What are you saying during this time to people?
The truth. I figure you can't go wrong if you just tell the truth. But the thing is, everybody can't handle the truth. Everybody doesn't want to acknowledge the truth. Some people are concerned about if they tell the truth, like I had. Okay, I'm trying not to tell all the book. Nobody will get it, right? But there were certain people along the way who chose not to do things to what I call save the lives of my children and my family, because they cared more about their family. And that was just so devastating to say, okay, mine can perish, but you can go home and eat dinner at the table. Really? But I guess that's what happened. So, it's the whole, it's just been so much. It's just, I'm trying to stay within the parameters, but some of the things, when you ask me certain things, they kind of go into other areas. Cause like right now I'm thinking about the legal component, what they were obligated to do as legal representatives, how some people, did unethical things, whether it's the judge or the guardian ad litem, or who was supposed to look out for the best interest of my children, who chose to instead look out for the best interest of Danye Ferguson. So, it's been a difficult ride, but I remember you saying something about my advocacy through looking for an angel, and that it was just it was something that I knew I was going to do. When people ask me, well, what do you want to put on the shirts? I said, looking for an angel, because I used to call Christian my angel baby. Okay. And so that was easy for me. And I thank God for the Shorn Hornbeck Foundation for them coming to my aid. Okay. I think it was like 2 days after my son went missing, they were there, and what
did they do?
They helped to set up the command post and get things going, so that we can bring in people from the community so that they can go out and search for Christian. So it was just like, it reminded me of like the military in a way, like how they just, it may be a just open area, and then boom, here they are, and they're doing, and it's just like bees in a beehive. They're doing whatever they're doing, and they're doing it well, I guess. So hopefully, but
and this was a massive. We're not talking about some minor search. This was a massive.
I never saw anything like that in my life.
Yep. Look,
I'm
telling you, I'm from St. Louis. I remember this was a massive, all hands on deck search. We're not talking a few volunteers here and there. I'm talking everybody and their mama was out looking for Christian.
And then you have people in the media. I remember like John Gasson, he passed away and was not able to see us get justice. But like one of his reporter friends inboxed me, and they were like, I know he praising in heaven or something to that effect. Because, Christian's case, this disappearance, everything, it moved the whole community. It continues to move the whole community. Yeah. And I wanted, God to use this as a case to preserve and save the lives of other people, especially those with disabilities and life-threatening disorders, because sometimes they're just not treated fairly. There's a lot of kids who have disabilities who go through abuse and neglect, and then you have some parents that they just make poor choices under their circumstances. A lot of times people don't want to say help, and then or they don't want to give up for whatever kind of reasons, or sometimes people just do things because of just bad thinking, so but I just thank God for the media who came out, for the volunteers who came out, who could do things that I couldn't do for myself. My people in my family, some friends. I remember this lady calling. I think it was a lady, because it's been some time now. But they said that they were disabled, but if they could come out and search, they would. So just the thought of knowing that a person who did not have, they weren't able to use all of their limbs like I can, but they had a desire to come out because they were moved that way. To have the media report in the manner in which they did, I could tell that God was going to do something miraculous, with the case, but I had no idea all that I would have to go through and how I would have to fight for my life just to get to this point so that it could be the type of case to hopefully change laws and to force people to do what's in the best interest of those that they serve.
I want to ask you about a very important issue. I am a paramedic and a firefighter. My license is still active in the state of Missouri. As a mandated reporter, and this came up in the trial, I'm just going to say it. Too many people dropped the ball.
Well, thank you for saying it.
Too many people did not do their damn job. I am a mandated reporter having a medic license in the state of Missouri, just like anybody else who is a mandated reporter for the state that they're licensed in. When I watched the trial of Missouri versus Ferguson, and I listened to every one of those mandated reporters, you can ask Mrs. LP. I was pissed with a capital piss. I'm trying not to throw shit at the TV. I'm cursing. I'm all
We were doing just the opposite, because while you're doing that, I'm like, hey, the truth is coming out. Come on, tell it.
Absolutely. As a mandated reporter, though, I said, you know what? I bet Christian's case, and I'm not talking about the court case, but I bet because of what happened in Christian's case, it changed how mandated reporters are now held to their feet are held to the fire. Because if that happened today, all of those mandated reporters will probably be fired or at least not licensed anymore. So unfortunately, they didn't do their job. But you know what it did? It brought a lot of light and a lot more awareness to the people that, like me, have a license and are mandated reporters. And I believe that Christian Ferguson's case and story and life has helped save many, 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 many lives here on out. Because as mandated reporters, we have got to do better. We have got to be better. We have got to, I can't just tell it to my supervisor and let it go. Mm-hmm. I've been in situations where I had to, now we're from Missouri, so we call it hotline, calling DFS, calling Child Protective Services. I've had to do that. Yes, you start off telling your supervisor about the situation, but your supervisor does not have the authority to keep you from reporting those issues.
Exactly.
It doesn't work like that. Your supervisor can't make, your supervisor's license is totally different from your license. It has nothing to do
with two different individuals.
Right. We're not talking about a company policy. We're talking a federal and state law.
Yes.
Two different kinds. We're not talking apples and oranges. We're talking apples and hammers. So when I was watching that case, I was on fire. And I'm so glad that those individuals who came after those individuals, like myself, now know why it's so emphasized, why it's important for you to be a mandated reporter, why it's so important for you to report anything that you see when it comes to child or elder abuse, why it is your license on the line.
Mm-hmm. But just thinking about that, first of all, I guess I should say thank you very much for expressing my feelings, because it's things like that help me make it along this way. Meeting other people who overcame certain situations or people who can validate my opinion. Because when I'm saying, hey, does this make sense? And they're like, no. And I'm like, exactly, because I had someone that thought they had a like mind. It gave me the energy to push. And actually, even when they didn't, and I was more confident in myself.
Yes.
At one point, I didn't care what nobody thought anyway. I'm just going to do what I have to do. But you just bringing up what you said means so much, because I am, even though I'm not in the school district, as far as I'm concerned, I'm a mandated reporter for life. As a mother, I'm a mandated reporter.
Absolutely.
I can't just see something and act like I didn't see it, because all the time I'm just thinking, well, what if it were me or my child, or, just according to the circumstances, I'm just like, whatever the situation is, if there's something that I can do in my capacity, I need to be doing it. If that's going to preserve the life of that person or help that family member get the help that they need, then I need to do that. So, it also, as a parent, should make people think, when they send their kids to school, are they really protected? This is one of those cases that will make I don't care what job you have. I'm sure that this case is impactful.
Absolutely. This is
No
a
matter
historic
what
case.
situation, whether you're a police officer, paramedic, whether you're an educator on a PTO, whatever, because everybody can do something for somebody else, and we had a helpless child that was totally dependent on other people, and the other people did what? Fail my child. Now the good thing is, since I'm one of those people that have found a blessing in anything, I thank God that they came forward. They came forward late, but they came forward, and they didn't have to. The truth came out eventually. It should have come out a long time ago, but it came out. So it's things like that that I cling to, because I know so many other people who still don't have a resolution in their situation. A lot of people who their missing person case didn't make the news. And I even use my situation to try to bring them along and have them stand by me or stand behind me, or, hold their hand or stand behind. I'm always trying to make it work. But something about the media people, at least many of them in the past, they slicing and dicing it. It is what they make it, even though you're trying to do some of these things. Some people just don't know, because maybe they've not been interviewed before. But sometimes I'll say something about other cases and they'll just cut that off and, hi, how you doing? That's all you get. I'm like, I talked 20 minutes. What happened? All you got is how you doing. So, and that's just an example, but still things in the media world have changed. Okay. I heard more African-American cases being mentioned, even though we still have a long way to go. But just understanding that evidently through my advocacy and people who are boots on the ground, some of the grassroots media organizations, they're doing the work. And now sometimes the media, the typical media or the media we grew up with on TV, they have to acknowledge some of the grassroots organizations because they were first on the scene. And people, they're not calling some of these agencies like they used to. They may be inboxing the grassroots media stations. So, I thank God for situations like mine and other cases that have happened, causing a whole political shift, a whole shift in the nation and in life to give more attention to lives that weren't properly represented in the first place.
This is the Trigger Warning Talk podcast. We are streaming across all platforms. This podcast is going to be coming out. You know what? I want to bump your podcast up. I was going to bring it out in September, but I can't do it. I just can't do it. I need to get it out sooner because it's such an important story.
Yes, it is.
Now, anybody that's listening to this podcast, because again, we do trigger warning and we give trigger warnings, and this stuff is heavy, heavy, heavy. If you're triggered at any point, because we're talking about the death of a special needs child, we're talking about the missing person in Christian Ferguson. It's been over 19 years. His body has not been recovered. There's one person that knows where he is, and they're not saying anything. However, that person was convicted of first-degree murder in the state of Missouri in the case that was broadcast live on Court TV a few weeks ago now. This is week number 3 now.
I believe the verdict was read on July 1st.
Yeah. So we're in the 3rd week now. First-degree murder for Danye Ferguson. And I want to say to everybody that's listening, not only if you're triggered, call 911, contact some of these organizations. Contact the domestic violence hotline. Contact the sexual assault hotline. Contact the trafficking hotline. Contact, Al-Anon and AA and NA. Contact 988 if you have suicidal ideation issues. There's going to be some other numbers that I'm going to be adding to the show notes because there's so many great either federal organizations or government agencies, state and local. We're going to get into that because Theda, she works with state legislatures. She's written bills. But before we get to that, you said something to me when we did our pre-interview meeting. You mentioned 3 H's: healing, helping, and hindering.
Yes.
Give us a brief explanation of that. What does that mean? Healing, helping, and hindering.
Well, you helped me birth that because you said one of those H's, and I just give it up for yourself. But I have to give credit where credit is due. So I don't know if I know I did the last 2, but maybe you should start to help me remember. But those are the hindering part is the part that I really want people to understand. Because if you're not helping, what was the other H?
It was healing, helping,
if
and
you're
hindering.
not healing, if you first, and then just thinking about it, if you don't get the proper help, you can't heal. And that means you're hindering not only yourself but your community because you're in your environment, So but there's a lot of people who are sitting in capacities of power who are hindering those that they represent. So if these people put you in a position to represent them and to advocate for them and do what's in their best interests, then if you're not doing that, what are you there for? I'm just saying, what are you there? Are you just holding a seat because you can, because you just want to take on a challenge and just see if you get there? Okay, well, let's say you did take it on for those reasons and you're there. What are you going to do with that power that you have at your disposal? If you're just sitting there and your people aren't prospering and they're not doing better, what are you there for? Do us a favor and get out. Yes. Just get out or they can elect you out. But the thing is, it's important for people to get the help that they need so that they can know what they can do to hold those people in a position of power accountable so that those people won't continue to hinder their communities, hinder their children. Because when people are not giving you these people are getting monies that can help your community and end these disparities. So if your community still looks like it looked however many years ago, or the way it looked when you were a kid,
that's a problem.
I'm just saying, some people are they're in a seat. Their family was in the seat and they just stand in the seat. Okay, so if you're not doing anything and you're not creating any substantial legislation, I'm just saying, okay, maybe it's good to have a flag on every school. Let's say that, for example. I'm just pulling something. Okay, but my kid's still hungry, or people still harming themselves. The people need help. It's okay to do that every now and then. Maybe after you finish feeding and clothing and comforting those people that you serve. But a lot of people don't know how to contact their state representatives. They don't know how to contact their senators. They don't know. They just don't know. They don't know who their council person is, if they call them a council person or alder person. And these are the people making decisions about your life or your lives every day. These are the people that make funds available to your community. So, if you don't know, contact me. I'll tell you, because I love sharing that information in my work capacity and in my personal capacity.
How many bills have you written?
I don't know. Less than 10, maybe less than 10.
And of those bills, have any been moved into where now they're a law?
Well, I wrote one called Christian's Law, but I don't think, and see, that gets back to what I'm talking about, because I was fortunate enough to have someone allow me to produce those. Well, I produced the bills, but it took someone else to allow it to go through them to be written down as legislation. And so this is something that anybody can do. What form of injustice are you going through? What do you want people in a position of power to do to change your circumstances? If you can think of that idea, you know, and if you can't think of how to put it, talk to your friends, your family, your pastor, somebody you trust, and then contact your representatives and tell them this is what you want or this is your demand. A lot of times people aren't demanding things, but hey, you put them there, you ought to tell them what you want, right? Absolutely. You go to McDonald's and you order a Happy Meal and they give you a quarter pounder. You just gonna just say, okay, I'll take this. Or you gonna say, no, I asked for a Happy Meal. Right. You get what, you know, you gotta hold these people accountable. They're in positions to rule over your life. So whatever it is that you think needs to be changed, tell those people who are in positions of power, your council person, your people in executive positions, people who are your senators, tell those people. And maybe you need to gather some more people with you because there's strength in numbers.
Absolutely.
And hold them accountable to creating that legislation. But I did create some legislation and I'm still creating legislation. And I'm grateful for the opportunity for that legislation to get where it has gotten. But if let's say it comes to be, and I can pull it up on the website. If you as a representative are not doing what is necessary to pass that legislation, I wasted my time with you. You know what I'm saying? So
it's a work in progress. I know
it's a work in progress. But if that one person won't get it through, you just go to another one. You got a whole house full of people. Some of them, they would help you if you call. And sometimes they don't have to be in your own district because really a murder in St. Louis is like the murder in California as far as I'm concerned, because murder is murder. Right. You know, I'm just using that as an example. So I'm just saying anybody can handle some of these situations. It's not the boundary lines. It is what it is. I don't care about boundary lines because I feel like in order to make a more equitable society, then you need to stop putting all these hindrances in the way. Just, call it as it is, do what's necessary because the lives in North St. Louis are just as valuable as the lives in South St. Louis or in South County or North County. We're all valuable. So we just need to make sure that people are doing what they can in their capacities to address our needs. And we need to hold those people accountable and make our voices known, make our votes count, and vote every election. Don't skip one because that may be a very big, you may miss something, So yes, freedom isn't free. You have to pay the price. You have to sacrifice for your liberties. And that's a song I learned when I was in kindergarten at Mark Twain and in the hood. And it's never left me. I still know that whole first verse. So, you have to know who the people are. You have to know what your issues are. Tell those people in representative positions what your issues are. Draft your legislation if you have to. You're doing them a favor. All they have to do is just send it to research or whatever. And then they have to collaborate to get that thing passed. If there's more of a certain party in the house, then you have to learn how to work with people that you may not typically work with. You can't just leave it up to if you're in the minority and you can't get any legislation passed, then you have to learn how to work with people that think a little differently. Maybe they're in a different party, but they have babies too. They have needs too. They care about some of the same things that we care about. So, we just need to do what's in the best interest of each other and learn our rights and, make sure that our rights aren't stripped from us.
I got a question about Amber Alerts.
Okay.
What has changed with the Amber Alert system since Christian's case?
Well, I'm working on something right now. I would like for something called the Christian Alert, for example, that will focus on people, not just children, but people with special needs or life-threatening illnesses. Because even with the Amber Alert, the police have so much leeway that I don't think they should have. It shouldn't be, well, I don't think this is a runaway, or I don't think this. It is what it is. Just do what is necessary. That's how I feel about it.
And talk about that, because a lot of people, again, when I do these podcasts, 75 to 80% of the show is the guest talking. So I want you, because you're a subject matter expert, not just because of what happened with Chris.
Okay.
Yes, you are a subject matter expert. If anybody is, you are definitely one. So you don't have to have a degree or a license to be a subject matter expert. That's a big misnomer. That gives you more clout, I guess you can say, or whatever. But you can be a subject matter expert
and not have credentials.
And not have those credentials.
Yes, I know that there are certain things that have to be in place in order for you to receive an Amber Alert, but I just feel like anytime you're leaving it up to law enforcement to determine whether or not something is what it is, then I have a problem. I just have a big problem with that. I feel like it should be, if a child is missing and this, that, and the other, but just make it solid. Don't give any leadway. Just like when I think we were talking about this the other day, how when people go missing, I was saying that a lot of times there's only male and female silhouettes being used to let the community know, at least in the state of Missouri, to let people know that a person is missing. And I'm like, it's a silhouette. Like, that's really supposed to tell us who we're looking for? I mean, you can't see. I mean, you saying black or white or curly hair or whatever you're saying as far as the description, but you're not giving us a visual to go by. So except for this silhouette. So I started this hashtag, we can't find those we can't see. So
we can't find those, hashtag we can't find those that we can't see.
Yeah, I just don't have the that in there, but we can't find those we can't see. Oh. And so if somebody just type that in on Facebook or maybe even LinkedIn, I probably put it on Twitter. I probably put it on Instagram too. But the fact is we can't find those we can't see. So if you click on that, you'll see a lot of the work that I've done, especially on Facebook, to help families, and a lot of times some of the cases were solved because, and you'll be able to see that probably as well too. But just to act, I mean, I sometimes I do some radical things in my personal capacity because as a mother, I just do it. I do what it takes, because some people want you to remain calm. Okay, now go home. We filed your case or whatever. But getting back to these silhouettes and everything, whenever a person goes missing, you should not have a silhouette. You should be asking those loved ones for a photograph, a picture of their missing loved one. That should just be automatic. So let's say that there is a rule saying that, let's say that there is no rule, that the only thing you have to do is just file a case. Well,
yeah, because that's you be reading my mind, Theda.
Hey, hours.
Okay, I was just getting ready to ask you that. Let's say we're just talking hypothetically. Your child comes up missing.
Okay.
I want you to lay out the whole process, just generally speaking, but I want you to lay out the process of what you should do as the parent from once you realize your child is missing. What should you do from that point, from A to Z?
Well, it's going to depend on the parent to some degree. That's fortunately, but unfortunately at the same time. But there's certain things that just should happen. Like once you checked around and you made sure that they're not at home or where they were, You know, you need to make that police report. You should not be waiting 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours. I help people all around the country because, I mean, they'll say, well, we had to do this. And I'm like, no, that's not right. And especially in Missouri, because I know Missouri laws better than I do other places. Just like when assisting with the Jelani Day case, I found out that the Illinois didn't have what Missouri has, like a web page for missing persons. So I'm grateful that Missouri at least has a missing persons database where we can go over, the public has access to be able to look at it and see how many juveniles or how many adults are missing, you know, and they can also go by municipality, you know, and all you have to do is change the investigating agency. If you want to know about, you know, they have different categories on that page. So you can just manipulate the category so you can then press search and it'll give you pretty much what you're wanting to find out. If you want to know how many people are missing in Ferguson, if you want to know how many people are missing in Berkeley, if you're trying to compare the two, maybe you have something that this is the subject of discussion in one of your classes and you needed that data, you know, to prove your point or to answer your teacher's questions or whatever, you know. But I think that gets back to meaningful education, because, you know, I don't think people should just be learning things to learn something. It ought to be with a purpose. Do things. I'm not saying you can't have fun and things like that, because there's a time thing. But sometimes some of this stuff like busy work, and I'm like, we have all these problems out here, but people are getting busy work. But yeah, you need to search, make sure, you know, call your family, friends, get on their social media accounts, you know, but some parents aren't able to do that. And that's why I said it may be different, because maybe your kids have something you don't know about. Maybe you thought they didn't have a social media page and they do. So that means that, you know, maybe you need to know their friends as best as you can, but you definitely need to be calling, not waiting 24, 48 hours, not even if I immediately call. I would rather those parents to call immediately after they check the house or wherever those people are, wherever they're supposed to be. And then that child come up a couple of, you know, hours later than for you to not call. And then something tragic happens. And then you're like, dang, I should have called. I should have made that report. But sometimes people are afraid of being wrong. You know, they're afraid that, you know, maybe the child will come home any moment, but the child never comes, you know, and then they don't want everybody in their business, you know, because these kids have to grow up and, you know, live their lives and everything. But sometimes the reality is that sometimes our kids, you know, they try our rules. They do what they want instead of following what they should be doing, or maybe they think that it's okay and it's not. You know, sometimes things happen and then parents have to figure out, you know, they may in response have to put some parameters in place because that had never been an issue before. And then you're dealing with sometimes a lot of teenagers, and sometimes teenagers think they're grown, even though they're not. You know, they're still developing and they may not know some of the things that adults know. But then again, sometimes it's, you know, maybe the kids know some things the parent, you know, we all need to work this thing out together. But like I said, check, call the police. You want to have flyers created or create the flyers. Some families, they already know what they want their flyers to look like. You know, sometimes I may just look at it and say, oh, this is, you know, typically we add age, sex, weight, height, you know, age report or whatever, because you want as much information as possible. But you want to use social media, anything that's available to you. I would recommend parents contacting the schools, because usually the schools take pictures every year and they have an updated photo. Like if they have that picture agency come in, maybe that agency will have that. I think it's the Missouri State, not the Missouri State, but the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. I think sometimes they'll have these little options where you can have the photo of the child put on that card and it has their personal information on there. Right. Or maybe they can contact me. I could send them a little kit that I created myself with their
you have a kit. Okay, cool.
I do, but and actually some agencies, they have them too, like life insurance agencies and things like that. Or maybe you just said, I can do this myself and just did the fingerprint yourself. But the main thing, I can tell you the pros and cons about that too, because once I created those, I was like, well, what if you don't? I hate to say this, but what if you don't find the hands? You know what I'm
That's a
saying?
valid question. No, that's a valid question. Just like the St. Louis Jane Doe case, where the young girl was found, they found her body, but she was headless. And
Yes,
that case has been since the 70s.
exactly.
So that's a no. And this is why I love having you here on the show, because I want people to get specifics like that. Hey, if there is missing appendages, if there's, phalanges, which are fingers and toes, if they're
Mhm.
missing, how you gonna get fingerprints? If
Exactly.
there's
And that
if
gets
there's
back
no
to that.
head, you
Mhm.
know, you can't really identify the body unless you get DNA samples and all this stuff. But
Exactly.
these are important points that you're making, because I like getting people to think outside the damn box.
Yes,
Because
you
a
have
lot of
to.
times Martin Luther King said it best, there's nothing more dangerous in this world than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity. I added a word to that quote. I said, there's nothing in this world more dangerous than sincere, intentional ignorance
Intentional. That's their
and,
word.
and conscientious stupidity. We have got to stop putting our heads just in that box. Get your head out of the sand. Look
Yes.
around. Include stuff that you don't think about. Like you said, if that person doesn't have any hands, or they don't have a head, or whatever is missing, it's going
Mhm.
to make it harder for that agency, whether it's the law enforcement or whatever group that does search and rescue, to find that person. So these things that you're putting out there, or I'm just sitting there doing cartwheels. You just don't see me flipping right now. But I'm like, yes, thank you. Keep on going. Keep.
Well,
Go,
well,
go
on
ahead.
that, I'll just mention this organization that some people can look up if they have time, and I pray they will, because it'll help them to understand how serious the missing person cases are as well. And that's NamUs. So basically, that's like a database. I
What's
mean,
the
it's
name
like
of
NamUs, NAMUS. And so, like, if you go to the website, you'll see that they have like a list of missing persons, unidentified persons. So sometimes they have found bodies, but people don't even know their loved ones are missing.
Wow.
Because I mean, really, how many people in your family? Let's just make it real.
All right.
Exactly.
All right.
So you could go to a family reunion, but you still may not really know those people. Like, how many people that you met at a family reunion do you really communicate with? I mean, maybe
Especially
on
nowadays, because people don't
Facebook.
do family reunions like they used to.
Exactly. They don't even play kickball. Remember, we used to go outside play kickball. They don't even go outside like that anymore. And I don't think I haven't seen it, you know. But you know, but I'm just saying it's so easy. And then sometimes people do want their space.
Mhm.
So just understanding, that's why it's important for people to let people know where they're going, whether they're a child or an adult. You have to have somebody that knows where you're going and when what's your expected return. Because if you how I'm just saying, anything can happen to any of us, you know. Or if you could be missing in your house. People just know you didn't come to work, for example,
Yeah.
but you fell in your house, you hit your head, and now they don't know where you are.
Where you are.
Until somebody decides to call, and you gotta hope that you have some employees at work that care enough about you to hip somebody to something. So
We
they,
get calls all the time for what they call them wellness checks.
yes, exactly.
It's called a wellness check.
That's right.
You can call 911 and say,
Anybody. Yeah,
hey, it could be any age, it could be
that's
any
right.
gender. Hey, call 911. Hey, my coworker LP is missing. Like, he normally is on time. He comes every day. Here's his hours, but he haven't showed up, and it's been 3 hours or whatever. That's not
Yes,
like him to
yes,
do a no call, no show. Can
exactly.
somebody? Here's his address. Can somebody go and do a wellness check? They're going to send police. They're going to send fire and EMS, because we might have to breach the door or the window or whatever. I've climbed through windows. I've busted through doors all kind of stuff. Like and sometimes you find them, okay, sometimes you don't.
And I
Try
like
to,
the fact that you said that he's missing. The LP is unusual, but he is missing, because sometimes depending on how you package your situation, that's going to determine how law enforcement is going to
right?
respond to your situation. So, oh well, I think maybe he will. Anybody got time for that? Because you're
Nope.
not gonna get the help you need if you
Right.
say it like that. You have to decide this is it. They are missing, and let them know your child is missing. They have this, they have that, they have a special mark over there. Their eyes are this. They change their hair as much as Theda. That's me. But whatever it is, give as much information as possible so that we will know what to look for. But like I said before, even once you know the age, sex, height, weight, circumstances, and all of that, still it's possible that the image that we put on that flyer may not be what we find. Especially when it's been a long time later. Sometimes there have been cases where I remember this one little case, and I want to say it happened in Louisiana, Missouri, because I went down to try to pass out flyers. But I believe that man it's been some time, but I think he cut her hair off to try to change her. So if you're looking for somebody to look a certain way and then they cut off, a lot of times people they have an idea of what a person would look like. Like, no matter how often I change my hair, they know it's me for the most part, so, but some people don't pay attention like that, unfortunately. So, so we need people to just pay attention. We need the police to respond properly to help these families who may think their loved ones are missing, because I'd rather be safe than sorry. And sometimes when families are making these calls, sometimes law enforcement, they're not that friendly. And I've had some situations where I just had to get off the phone and show up, because I didn't like the way they talk to the people that I'm serving, and I didn't like how they talk to me. So I'm like, hey, so it's all about checks and balances. Just like our government has different positions or different branches and they check each other, we need to check the system, because we compose the system. So if there's something we don't like, we need to change it.
We're going to be winding down in about 10 minutes. This is Theda Person, Mama Bear, advocate, executive director of Looking for an Angel, which we're getting ready to talk about in a few minutes. Mother of Christian Ferguson. The case for her son's murderer was adjudicated early this month on Court TV. The case is Missouri versus Ferguson. It was a week-long trial. In the end, DeJuan Ferguson, which is Christian's biological dad, was found guilty of first-degree murder. He's going to be sentenced sometime, I believe, this year.
I believe it's August 16th.
August 16th. Yeah, I couldn't. Yeah. So it's coming up pretty soon. What I want to ask you, Theda, is this: you created Looking for an Angel Incorporated. Tell us about that, because that's a phenomenal nonprofit organization. And before you answer that, the reason that Theda and I were talking about being very detail oriented is because, like the Trigger Warning Talk podcast, one of the things that you see in that color band, we talk about missing persons, we talk about sexually based offenses, we talk about domestic violence, but we also talk about human and sex trafficking.
Mm-hmm.
Most people, when they think of trafficking, they think in these stereotypical mindsets. They think either somebody being shipped over from Europe in some shipping containers, or being thrown in a fucking van, being shipped across the Mexico-U.S. border. Now, the trafficking happens in this country every day, twice Sunday, all the time. And a lot of our melanated people that are ended up being missing or being missing because they're being trafficked for one reason or another. So with that being said, Looking for an Angel Incorporated.
Okay. Well, in my capacity, my personal aim as a Looking for an Angel board member, founder, I sometimes like when you said something about trafficking, and it kind of made me want to speak about something else. But you said talk about looking for an angel, but that human
No, the mic is yours. Go right
Oh,
ahead.
okay, because
I'm taking notes.
okay, okay. Well, write down this. Some police officers don't see missing persons as human trafficking, which I understand that to some degree. But my thing is, how do we know those that are missing aren't being trafficked? Like a lot of times, I've heard people tell me, "Oh, well, those are just missing person cases." I'm like, but how do you know? If we can't find them, how do we really know that? So I think that they need to do more work on trying to verify whether those cases. I'm not saying that no one's doing that work, because different municipalities. Oh man, I'm now thinking about some other things too, and I found this out. Doing looking for an angel work, that like one municipality handles missing person cases one way and another one handles it another way. There's no uniformity. So, they're
Why is
telling the
that?
person, that's a great question. And that's another reason why we need people to understand that this is happening, so they can contact their council person or their automatic person or alder person, however you want to say that, and also their state representatives and their senators, because it should just be the same. I worked a case where they entered the person into a local kind of missing, but not into the NCIC, which goes across the country. So it's so easy to take one person from Missouri and they end up in California or somewhere else, somewhere across state lines. A lot can happen just here, but I'm just saying it's so easy to just go from one place to another. Everybody should be on alert. So if you have municipalities that'll say, okay, I'll put it in this little local database, but not in this national database, that's a problem already. And believe me, some of your state and your officials, I'll just say some of your elected officials, they were unaware of this until I started having meetings with them about how, or not even really having meetings, but just I'm making my business for people to know who I am, because I'm on a mission, and the mission is not just for myself. So, since once you learn how the system works, you're able to go to certain people to advocate for people that they don't even know. I've advocated for so many people that don't even know that I'm advocating for them. I just overheard a conversation. I could be sitting in a room and another parent said something in the back. I said, "Oh no, that shouldn't happen." And if that's happening, let me find out if that's happening. So I'll go talk to somebody. They don't even know I'm working for them. But that's what that word intentionality, being intentional, do stuff on purpose, do the good stuff. A lot of people are here choosing to do wrong, but choose to do some good stuff on purpose. Choose to just do good stuff on purpose. But I'm not trying to say it's okay to do a little bad stuff. I'm just saying that we need to be intentional about what we're trying to do, because it shouldn't be where town and country police department, like I think maybe they have just one person that's missing on their site, and then in Ferguson you got about almost 30. Why is that? Why and where are the pictures? It's not making sense. And when people go missing, how come the school's not asking for organizations like Looking for an Angel, even if it's the NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children? Why aren't they disseminating that flyer? It's your student. And has anybody even thought to even ask them? So these are the kind of things, like when we do public speaking events, or if someone asks me to come to their church, because I will go. If they ask me, I will go. But okay, and then we can just talk about what's necessary to get me there. But I love talking, and I really love talking when people have certain points, because I can just go bam, 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 bam. But then I like free talking as well, because you just never know where the conversation will go. And then maybe you'll say something that jogs my memory. And then I say, hey, I need to create a bill about that and talk to some people about that. But, it's just so much work that needs to be done. Like I said, sometimes these people aren't talking to parents that are already grieving the disappearance of their loved one. They're talking to them like they're stupid. Or like they're not important, but because of my tax dollars, you have a job.
You gotta listen.
Exactly. You know, and what would you want people to do for you? If the tables were turned, what would you want people to do?
That's that point right there speaks volumes. It's just like the famous statement, silence speaks volumes.
Yes. And
And
that, and
we
that also with the state reps and stuff, with the
yeah,
legislators. Okay, I had this problem, but you haven't said nothing. Like
right.
today, I went to the vigil for a press conference with Lavina Johnson. Are you familiar with that case? And I could
Mrs.
share with
LP
you.
is, yeah. Mrs. L, you go ahead, but Mrs. LP
Okay.
said something about that. But yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I would love for you to see if you could just do some research on that
Oh,
situation. I
see,
think,
I'm telling
yes.
you, if she haven't sent me out, because every week she sends me a list of missing persons cases,
Okay.
including the
And
ones like what I'm doing today, even if they're not missing, but there was an injustice in their
yeah,
in
and because of what you shared, I think because this is on another level. Because like, who comes to the aid when lawyers are afraid? I mean, I'm a witness of that. I experienced that right now.
yeah.
Some people were afraid to do what was necessary to preserve the lives of my family. So I went from lawyer to lawyer to lawyer to lawyer when it looks like maybe I have a problem. No, the problem is that you have too many people afraid to speak the truth. You know,
Absolutely.
I had one attorney tell me that if he went up and said the truth and the facts on my custody case, then the judge would automatically rule against him in future cases. So where's the justice in that?
Speaking of that, I want to give my flowers and a huge shout out to St. Louis County Prosecutor Wesley Bell and his staff
Ooh.
for prosecuting this case, because the previous St. Louis County prosecutor who was over the Mike Brown case, he wasn't going to do anything. And we know how that case wound up and all this stuff. And like you said, it always depends on who's in office. That's why voting is so important. Getting Wesley Bell in office has changed so much, and it has gotten cases like this Missouri versus Ferguson brought to the forefront. There's other cases that are coming down the pike that his office has investigated and said, you know what, this should have been adjudicated before I got into this administration. This should have been brought to the forefront before we came in here, but it wasn't. So I want to give a huge shout out to St. Louis County Prosecutor Wesley Bell and his staff for doing a phenomenal case. That
Yeah.
prosecutor, if you guys, everybody that's listening to this podcast, go to Court TV and look at all the archival footage for the trial. It was only 5 days long, so it wasn't like it was a month-long trial or what have you.
Mhm.
And even if it was, they do highlights and all that stuff too.
Mhm.
That prosecutor, those two prosecutors that were doing the Q&A,
Ashley and John. Yes. Yes. And you know, and that also just shows why it's important to vote, like you said, why it's also that why we have to just voice our concerns, be persistent. Like I just kept going till somebody listened. And okay, I'll just say like this. Have you ever done something, look for your keys, or was working on an assignment and you knew you couldn't come up with your answer, but it was right there all the time? I'm just saying, sometimes you do need a fresh set of eyes to just look at some things. You know, maybe you overlooked it. I know I've heard about missing person cases where they already combed that field, but they went back and combed it again and found exactly the person that they were looking for. And we're fallible as adults, so why not just redo some things? And sometimes you can't just do it twice. Maybe you need to do it 3, 4, 5 times. But the thing is, you have to do it, and you have to make sure the climate and the culture is ripe for justice. Oh, I need to put that on a shirt.
oh man,
Is your climate and culture is your climate and culture ripe for justice? And if it's not, you know what you need to do.
say it again with some volume.
Is your climate and culture ripe for justice? Is it? If it is, what's your evidence? Exhibit 1. What's your evidence? And if it's not, or what's your evidence? If it is or is not, because you got to know the difference. If you don't even understand, if you don't know, then we need to do some homework. I mean, because sometimes you only know what you know. So, like, if the police say, "Hey, ma'am, you can't report your loved one missing until 24 hours," you gonna believe them because they're the police. But that just because they're the police does not mean they're right. And see, I don't go out trying to challenge authority, but I like evidence.
No,
I love evidence.
There's nothing wrong with questioning authority, because here's the thing. When you call, let's say you call either the 911, you call 911 or you call the non-emergency police line. They got to document that call came in.
That's right.
That's why I always tell people, do not hesitate to call, because whether you call 911 or you call the 911 police line, that call is going to be recorded. Somebody's got to document that those incoming calls. Even if you say, I'm reporting something as anonymous, because you can report stuff anonymously, it's still going to be written down and documented. So that's why it's so important that people understand you got to start the documentation process.
Yes.
You don't just wait 24, 48, 72 hours, because there's a whole TV show called The First 48. When somebody gets murdered, what do they say? They try to get everything that they can do and solve it, because in the first 48 hours, that makes a difference.
That's right.
So even when it comes to missing person, especially when it comes to missing persons, you gotta report. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. Ain't that the old saying?
Yes.
It ain't nothing changed with that. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. And so you don't want to be the hamster wheel. You don't want to be the hamster on the wheel. You want that information to, hey, who all I need to talk to?
Yes.
Do I need to talk to the sergeant, then the lieutenant, then the captain? Like, what's the chain of command? Because I want to talk to everybody and their mama if I need to, because at the end of the day, it ain't your kid, but it could be.
That's right.
At the end of the day, it's not your family member, but it could be. At the end of the day, I want us to get back to our humanity. That's one of the primary reasons that I started this podcast, because I feel like if we get back to our humanity and stop acting like just humans, we will have not as many of these cases. We will have better relationships, interpersonal relationships, better dialogue. My definition of community is this: common plus unity plus dialogue with, and I preface it with intentional, solution-based plans of actions. Because if we're just talking, I'm out. I'd rather sit at home binge watching something on Netflix and picking the lint out of my belly button than get involved in these dialogue-based conversations that don't go nowhere. It ends up being a trauma dump. It ends up being a bitch fest, and nothing happens. You have got to be intentional with your words. You got to use your words. You cannot be afraid. And even if you are, damn it, stand up, because somebody's going to be standing in that foxhole with you. I don't care what it takes. If you are not your family's advocate, what are you doing? With that being said, we're going to go into the shameless plug session, because we can talk all day, every day, and twice on Sunday, Miss Theda person. And I know you got a lot of stuff going on. I want to put the link to Looking for an Angel in the description, in the show notes, for contact information. I also want you to talk about what you're doing outside of Looking for an Angel, because you got other things that you're doing. And I know these things are some great things. You are an entertainer. Talk about that real quick. What you doing with the Flex Band?
Okay, well, we've been hitting it and quitting it. And we are available, and maybe you can add that link on there too. My stage name is Theda Rocks, and I created that myself. It's not, it's T as in Tom, H as in Henry, E as in Edward, D as in Dynamite, A as in Apple, R as in Rose, O as in Octopus, X as in Xerox. That sounds funny saying X Xerox, but or as in X-ray if you want, to hear that X in it. But my first name is Theda, my middle name is Roxanne, so I just say Theda Rocks because I was born to rock. I love Tina Turner. So
I was going to ask you about that. I was like, I wonder where she get the rocks from. I thought it was just like because you were doing like rock music, like because
my sister called me Rockhead as a kid, but I was like, no, not that rock. It's rock, like because I say rocks with an X. Because
I thought it was because I know you are a huge fan of Tina Turner.
Yes.
So that's where I thought it came from.
Actually, I was Tina Turner in Fair St. Louis some years back, like 2014, maybe 13, 14. I was on the Ike and Tina Turner float, and so I was happy. The person who booked me was like, hey, I didn't know who else to ask. Nobody can do it better than you. I'm like, exactly. Yeah. Got that money. But I love Tina Turner. Her story actually is very similar to mine. So I look forward to sharing. But the only thing is, I like going and speaking about my story. This one interview that I recently listened to, she doesn't really like that. I love hearing it. I love seeing the impact of telling my story. I love learning and being reminded of my story so that I can remember and not forget what I have learned. But yes, I'm with the Flex Band. So Mama Lou St. Sippy is in charge of the Flex Band. Yes, and so she's like my alter ego in a way, I guess. Like things that I might think to do, she gonna do it. She gonna do her thing. But she's a beautiful woman, and she's using her gifts and talents to promote us as individuals and parts of her band. So I'm just grateful for that opportunity. I love the arts. I make jewelry but singing is my therapy, so art is my therapy. I love different types of art, but this music thing is really kicking off, and I'm glad to feel like I'm part of something that I really want to be part of. So
Theda, I want to thank you so much. I'm going to have you come back on a regular basis because, this is the first podcast that we've done on the Trigger Want to Talk podcast where the whole episode was focused on missing persons.
Oh, okay. I appreciate
it. We're going to do that at least once a month. We'll have one show because we put out one a week. Like typically they come out on Thursdays. Last month I put out 3 in 1 week. But at least every Thursday we put out a new episode. I want to put yours out this Thursday, and I already got your pictures, and I'll get all the bio stuff from you or whatever. But that's fine. But definitely yours, I'm going to put it out this Thursday because
okay. Well, there's an election coming up, so that'll help people to figure out, okay, how should I really be thinking about this,
That's right.
And then it'll motivate them to do what is just and proper to produce justice for themselves and others. So thank you.
And this is important, and I want to say this to you in all seriousness. I want to wish you a lot of healing energy. I want to give you a lot of healing energy because at the end of the day, you're a mama bear that does not have the whereabouts of one of her cubs.
Yes.
And so from my family to yours, I want to give you a bunch of healing energy. I'm so glad and thankful that Ellen has surrounded you with love and protection. She has a heart of platinum. Mm-hmm. And I just want to thank you for all the work that you're doing, the voice, the courage, the strength, the tenacity. We from North St. Louis. We don't. Yeah. Our hearts don't bleed Kool-Aid.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? And so I want to thank you so much. I'm going to have the link to Looking for an Angel and the contact information in your IG. that'll be listed in there, and the hashtag "We can't find those we can't see." That
Okay.
is a phenomenal hashtag. Theda, again, we're gonna have to have you come back on a regular basis because when I do these missing person cases, I want you sitting right beside me. I'm like, look, Theda, this week we're gonna cover XYZ case. Let's get some show notes together and let's
Okay.
talk. It could be for 30 minutes, it could be an hour,
Mhm.
uh, but whatever it is, we'll work it out. And
Okay.
so again, this is Theda Person, mother extraordinaire, mama bear extraordinaire, advocate for missing persons, the mother of Christian Ferguson. Great, great, great seeing you on Court TV. I was like, because you were the first witness that the state
Yes.
called, and I was like, look at Theda, and
Yes.
they're all poised.
For such a time as this.
You've been waiting for that trial for 19 years. And I was like, man, you and Lynn and everybody that was on there was just, oh my God, I'm telling you. I, being in Charlotte, North Carolina, was not more proud to be a St. Louisan than I was during that week of that trial. And I want
Yes.
to thank you and your family for
Thank you.
giving me a sense of pride in our hometown because we know St. Louis, we love it to death. It has its problems like a lot of cities and then some. But you know what? There are people that come and that live in that city that have hearts like yours, like Ellen's, and like mine, that are not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're just trying to make this ride smoother. And with that, I just want to thank you so much. Now, I got to switch over to the missing person case. And this is a St. Louis case. Now, this person is not missing, but we talk about under missing persons, we talk about injustices. And
Okay.
so this is the case of Danye Jones. He was
Okay.
found in his backyard. He was a Ferguson activist doing the Mike Brown stuff. Again, when I do a St. Louis case, I try to do a missing persons case under that show also. But again, Danye Jones is not missing. He was found. He was found dead. He was found hanging from a tree in his backyard by his family. The reason that we're covering this missing persons case is just like Theda said earlier, we want to cover the injustices in that case and the other cases that we cover. And so for me, covering missing persons cases, I can throw stuff under there. I can say, hey, you know what? He's not missing, but the person or the people that killed him are missing. And because of that, we're going to call it a missing persons. We're going to throw it under the missing person umbrella because somebody might see this podcast and have some information that they've been sitting on.
Okay.
Or like you said, a fresh set of eyes. Something might spark when they see this story I'm getting ready to play. This is from CBSnews.com. This came out November 2nd of 2018. I want to share it with you guys right now, and I want to play it. It's a short story, and then we'll be done. So hold on just a second. I'm going to share my screen here. Let's see. Here we go. All right. Let me make it bigger.
A Ferguson, Missouri activist found her son hanging from a tree, and police are ruling it a suicide, but the mother believes it was a lynching.
Now she is calling for an investigation after she says police failed to do their job. Ashley Lincoln from our CBS affiliate in St. Louis, KMOV, spoke with the mother.
Suicidal? Ready to leave his mother? No. Nope. A mother knows her child.
That's why Melissa McInnes wants St. Louis County Police to dig deeper into her son's death.
He was not suicidal.
On October 17th, she found Danye hanging from this tree in their backyard with bruises on his face. And this is her post that's been shared across America.
He was in good spirits.
McInnes says the 24-year-old wasn't depressed and was starting a real estate business. She believes there's more to this story.
He said somebody took my son.
McInnes, a prominent Ferguson activist, told me she thinks her family is being targeted. In the last 2 months, she says they've been getting death threats through social media, and those threats recently showed up at her doorstep.
They watch my house, and when my husband and my son would approach the car, they would drive off.
She also told me she never reported these threats to police. And I asked, why not?
Because we felt like we had this,
The St. Louis County coroner says Danye's autopsy won't be ready for weeks, and they will not give News 4 any preliminary reports.
It's my baby. It hurts.
St. Louis County Police told us for now, this remains a suicide investigation.
Saying that he committed suicide? No. You're going to respect him.
At Jiffy Lube, it's our job to keep you moving.
So I want people to understand that, again, Danye Jones is not missing, and I repeat, he is not missing. He was found by his family in the backyard, hanging from a tree. His mother, Melissa McKinney, believes that he was lynched. And to this date, nobody has been brought to justice and nobody's even been arrested, I would say, in his case. So this is why we're covering that particular case. If you have any information, good, bad, ugly, or indifferent, about who may have been involved in the murder and the lynching of Danye Jones, contact St. Louis County Police, or you can contact the St. Louis County Prosecutor Office. I want to thank everybody for watching and listening to this podcast that's going to be available this Thursday, streaming on all platforms. So wherever you get your favorite podcast, you can watch it on Spotify. You can watch it on the Pending Consulting Solutions LLC YouTube channel, and everywhere else you can listen to it. Theda person, my St. Louis sister, I look forward to talking to you more. I can't wait to see you in probably September when I come back to visit St. Louis and the Flex Band, and we're gonna have a great time. And we're gonna be doing a lot of work in the near future. So with that, as always, this is the Trigger Warning Talk podcast. I'm your host, LP. Remember, live in awareness. Do not live in fear. And with that, peace and blessings be upon you all forevermore. LP out.